That's insane. Alright, this is not going well all of a sudden. Of course. Every now and then, I get lucky and stumble into a gratifyingly simple task. A straight line between idea and payoff. But this isn't a car, it's a project car. Today, an old BMW gets new wheels. It's kind of crazy how long I've had these wheels sitting here. These are Rota RBs. It's a copy of the popular Panasport wheel. They're really affordable, they look good, and it's a direct fit for these cars. And with them being a 15-inch wheel, it gives me really good tire selection, which is really kind of a problem with 13-inch wheels now, and one of the main reasons why I decided to change it up and get something else. It only took 2 hours to get the wheels back with tires mounted, so things were off to a good start. But vintage project cars rarely reveal all of their cards. When I first picked this up, it was really easy to roll this, but after driving it, the brakes were definitely dragging to the point that it was pretty hard to push the car. I'm guessing that the rear wheel cylinders are leaking, which is then leaking onto the friction material on the brake shoes, causing that to swell and then drag on these drums. Well, the drum looks okay. I can definitely tell that only part of this shoe has been contacting. It's not wet though, so it doesn't appear to be leaking. This actually turns even easier. That's really not bad. I don't think that's a problem. That is very sticky. Yeah, I can barely turn that. All right, so we know it's the fronts. I guess I'll just move on to test fitting these wheels. Okay, that's just ridiculous. Is that really ride height? That's insane. It's a solid 4 inches of clearance above the tires. All right. This is pretty much the poster child for why people say don't put larger wheels on your car without lowering it, because it makes them look absolutely ridiculous. We're not going to leave the suspension as it is. This will be getting changed up. I've just been debating what setup I want to go with. For now, I'm going to cut these springs. There's a couple reasons for that. One is that it's a temporary solution for me. I'm planning on most likely replacing all of this anyway. But secondly, I've cut springs on a couple other cars before, and if you're careful and thoughtful about what you're doing, it's a totally fine solution.
Now I see sunshine through the rain. Know when to lead and when to follow, and how to hide away my pain.
I also removed this spacer that used to sit on top of the strut mount, raising the body up for DOT regulations. So that's going to get us another ½ inch or so. Because I cut a coil and a half off, I needed to rotate the upper spring seat. With this amount cut, this spring actually moves around less than some other H&R springs that I've used off the shelf. So cutting the front springs made a pretty nice difference, but now that this looks right, we've got to do something about the rear. Since buying this car, I've challenged myself to be more carefree in how I go about my projects. What I choose to fix or modify, and what I make perfect versus leave dull and weathered. A past version of me would have avoided sharing cutting springs and anything other than immediately restoring the crusty suspension on this car. Part of this shift is being more honest with myself about who I'm doing things for, and more vulnerable in sharing things that aren't some carefully curated image of perfection. I am super excited to see this thing outside because I think it's going to look really good. Just seeing up close what it looks like, I'm pretty excited, but once I get it outside and back away from it and can see it from afar, it's gonna be totally different. Let's take it out. All right. Battery's dead. What happened? After turning the key, nothing happened. The engine wouldn't turn over and the starter wouldn't engage. What's going on here? Then the ignition stopped turning entirely. I've never once had any trouble turning this key. What's going on here?
I tried repeatedly to get the key to turn, but it was stuck. And suddenly, the wind shifted.
Come on. Alright, this is not going well all of a sudden. I removed the back of the ignition switch, which is just the electrical components. I've heard that those switches are pretty finicky and they're pretty easy to break, so I decided not to disassemble it if I didn't have to. I just took a bunch of electrical contact cleaner and sprayed that inside there and cycled the key a bunch of times to try to work that around and clean things up. So based on that, the ignition switch should be working the way it's supposed to. And I checked the wiring from the ignition switch to the starter. That's good. There's power at the battery. There's power at the starter itself. All the pieces are there now. So I'm gonna reconnect the battery and then give this a test. All right, we have power. Let's see if it cranks. Does not crank, the lights just turn off. We are getting 12 volts or 12.2, 12.3 volts to that starter trigger wire at the ignition switch. So that's really doing what it's supposed to. For some reason, it's just not triggering the starter now. Right now, I'm gonna check and see what the voltage is at the connector end of the wire when I am turning the ignition switch and see how much drop I'm getting compared to the 12.3 that I measured at the switch itself. .5, 12.6 volts. So I'm gonna try to give this a tap, see if that takes care of our problem. This starter might just be bad. I don't know. Guess I can check the connections on it.
After poring over the wiring diagram and testing everything I could think of, I was ready to chalk this up to a failing starter motor. As a last-ditch effort before pulling the starter, I added another ground by connecting a jumper cable from the starter body to the negative battery terminal.
Of course. Last thing I checked.
The ground strap for the battery was in poor shape, so I replaced all of the battery wiring using leftover motorsport wiring supplies on hand. However, that still didn't solve the problem, and I ended up pulling the starter, cleaning the hardware and mounting surfaces, and then reinstalling everything.
Definitely feel that I'm fighting those brakes in the front. Feel better though. It's kind of nice that it's not bouncing around so much. Suspension definitely feels a little bit better than it did.
Regardless, the car is outside and we can finally see how it looks with the new wheels and ride height. I'm really pleased. This suits the OEM Plus vintage flair that I wanted. After sorting the brakes and a few other details, we'll be ready for the first test drive on the street. And this isn't the only milestone.
I'm excited to announce that my new app, Assembly, is finally live in the App Store. We built Assembly specifically for project cars because I wanted a solution for my projects that can replace all of the distributed notes I have on my phone. It's been working really well for me, and it's now at the point where I want to have other people use it and see how it works for you in your projects. You can capture every aspect of your project car in Assembly and keep it all in one easy-to-use place. I'm super excited to share this with you, and I can't wait to hear what you think about it. So click the link in the description, download Assembly to your iOS device, and then leave a comment below letting me know what you think we should build next.
Thanks for watching, and a special shout out to supporting members who keep this channel going.